How's it going, you guys? Welcome to Ingenuity TV, where I try to teach you anything and everything automotive and mechanical related. Today we're doing something called an Ingenuity short, which is just a short video explaining something pretty simple and in a relatively short period of time and at a very basic level. So this one is going to be something called our piston engine layouts. This is the engines that specifically use pistons. There are some engines that do not, such as one called a rotary engine, which we'll get into in a later video. But let's go ahead and get started. So the one that you're going to come across in most of your smaller cars and stuff like that, things like Honda Civics and a lot of the lower end Fords and Chevys and stuff like that, things like your Ford Focus and stuff like that, is going to be something called an inline engine. Inline. And the reason for that is if you were to take a look at this from a front angle, this is exactly how we're looking at all these, by the way. These are as if you're looking at the front of the engine. You'd see all of your pistons and cylinders in a line. And the most common inlines are going to be the inline 4 and an inline 6. And that's actually how you write it. You write it as an I. You write it as an I followed by the number of pistons there are, or the number of cylinders there are inside of the car. Another one that you can find as well is one called an inline 3. Those really are in a lot of smaller cars and a lot of cars that you're going to find outside of the United States and places like Asia and places like that. Our next one is going to be called our V engines. And now V engines are going to be in a lot of bigger sedans or just bigger cars overall, and the two most common ones are going to be a V6 and a V8. I said your V6 is going to be found in a lot of bigger sedans and just a lot of bigger overall family cars generally. As for your V8 will be found in a lot of muscle cars, and it's called so because, well, it's in the shape of a V. So that one's pretty simple to figure out. The one that is a little bit weird and the one that's not really all that common is something called a W engine. Now what a W engine is it's essentially just two V engines kind of combined into one. And this is kind of what it would look like from the front. So they called it a W engine because they thought it kind of looked like a W. I guess it kind of does, but it's essentially two V8s or two V6s combined into one, and the pistons are offset like this, and they're connected to one crankshaft, which is this big part here in the middle, this big round part. And your two most common W engines are going to be W12s and W16s. Generally your W12s, or most of your W engines are going to be in a lot of higher end, sometimes like supercar status cars. W12, there's a Mercedes, it's an S-Class that has a W12 in it, and then for a W16, a good example of that would be something like a Bugatti Veyron. That one runs a W16 inside of that. And then that will bring us to our last kind of engine, which is called a flat engine. It's called so because the pistons kind of run in a straight line. And this one, it's kind of argued that it's supposed to be the most balanced engine that there is. Now, it does bring up some other problems, which we'll get into in later videos, but that's generally how it tends to work, is because they counterbalance each other. And in addition to that, with the pistons not having to go up at any kind of an angle or down at any kind of an angle, you can keep the engine relatively short and therefore put it lower in the car so you can reduce the center of gravity, which is always cool. Your two most common flat engines, and the way that you write a flat engine will be an H, so all the other ones kind of made sense because they fit in with the word, but for an H, or for a flat engine, we generally call them H's, and the two most common ones are going to be H4s and H6s. And the most common car, the most common car company that you're going to find flat engines in are going to be Subarus. Things like their Imprezas and their Outbacks and stuff like that. If I'm not mistaken, that's actually all that they use. You can also find them in Porsches and things of that, but Subaru is your most common car you're going to find those in. That just about does it. I hope that more or less covered all of that for you guys. As always, if you liked what you saw, remember to like, share, and subscribe. And if you have any questions, be sure to leave them down in the comment section below. If you have any questions, I said leave them down there. And if you have any suggestions for future videos, be sure to leave them down there as well. Alright, you guys. Well, have a great night.